Thank you. My name is Robert Bush. I'm the Chief Strategy and Operating Officer here at United Way. I'm stepping in for Courtney Nicolaio, and we're really pleased that you're here for the release of the Medicaid Matters Fact Book. We're proud to stand alongside the congressional delegation, Senator Reid and Senator Whitehouse. Thank you for being here. And other colleagues of the Protect Our Healthcare Coalition. Over 366,000 Rhode Islanders rely on Medicaid and CHIP for their health coverage. And it's not lost on us that the individuals who would be hurt by Medicaid cuts would suffer deeply. Medicaid cuts would affect every single one of us, all Rhode Islanders, making healthcare more expensive for everyone. The federal landscape is changing. The latest House Republican budget proposal would cut billions of dollars of Medicaid. This would involve capping federal contributions, shifting more burden to the state budgets, and undermine a 50-year federal and state partnership. Let's be clear, Rhode Island is not positioned to absorb these costs. In fiscal 23, the Medicaid expenditures accounted for $3.9 million to the state of Rhode Island, and over 18% of the state's total revenue. That's why the fact book matters. It provides the data, context, and stories to remind us that Medicaid is not just a budget item. It is a public health assurance that makes our community stronger, safer, and more equitable. Today, we encourage you to not only explore the data, but also use it in your advocacy as we do. Use the fact book to discuss in your discussions and ensure that every Rhode Islander, regardless of income, has access to health care with dignity throughout their lifetime. Thank you all for being here, and I want to hand the mic over to Seamus Tarak with the Protect Our Healthcare Coalition.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I want to thank the United Way for hosting us here today. I want to thank the Medicaid beneficiaries who've taken some time out of their day to come here to share their stories with us. And I want to thank the federal delegation, not just for being here today, but for your continuing work to safeguard Medicaid for Rhode Islanders, and for all of your work in Washington to advance healthcare access. I also want to thank the state and local elected officials who've joined us here today. I see Rep. Kislak, Senator Mack, Senator Uji Fusa. Thank you all, and anyone else who's going to be joining us. And I want to thank everyone here in the room today for all of your advocacy to help getting eligible people enrolled in coverage, helping promote healthcare in this state, to promoting a stronger and more all-encompassing healthcare system here in Rhode Island. We're here today to celebrate Medicaid's positive impact on Rhode Islanders and on our state. 1/3 of Rhode Islanders, more than 366,000 people, rely on Medicaid for their health insurance coverage. It provides comprehensive primary, specialty, prescription, long-term care delivered through 3 of the most highly rated Medicaid managed care plans in the country. And some populations are covered at an even higher rate. More than 125,000 children, more than half of Rhode Island's kids, including more than 12,000 kids with special health care needs. 44% of childbirths in Rhode Island. 85,000 adults who don't have access to any other affordable coverage, and wouldn't if it were not for the protection of the Affordable Care Act expansion of Medicaid. 2/3 of adults in nursing homes have Medicaid to cover their nursing home expenses. And more than 27,000 older adults and 32,000 adults with disabilities rely on Medicaid for their coverage. Medicaid also provides needing funding to our municipalities in our state. $220.4 million in federal Medicaid funds went to local Rhode Island education agencies in 2023. And Medicaid sustains our healthcare system and jobs. Nearly 1 in 5 workers in Rhode Island is employed by the healthcare system or the social assistance sector. And Medicaid is a significant payer towards our hospitals, our nursing homes, and our health centers. However, we're also here because Medicaid is facing the largest cut ever proposed. More than $700 billion federally over 10 years. That's expected to cause more than 8.6 million people to lose their Medicaid coverage. Medicaid is built on a federal and state partnership. And in 2023, $2.6 billion of the $3.9 billion in total Medicaid funding came from the federal government. Cuts to Medicaid are cuts to health access for all Rhode Islanders. They're cuts to our healthcare providers, they're cuts to our state and our municipalities, and they destabilize the entire healthcare system in Rhode Island. But that's enough for me. There's no one who can better highlight the importance of Medicaid than the Medicaid enrollees themselves. We're fortunate to have 3 of them here to share their stories today. And I'd first like to introduce you to Christina Amadeo and her son Alex to tell their story.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Seamus. Thank you so much to the Protect Our Healthcare Coalition for inviting me and Alex. My name is Christina Amadeo. I am a Senior Director of Community Services here at United Way of Rhode Island. But I would like to start with having Alex read to you how he feels about today. Go right ahead. Out.
My name is Amadeo. I enjoy life to full with my favorite activities going to this way. Selling shows at the food Western Marketplace, cutting clothes in at a dollar shop at Trader Joe's, going to the tulip farm. I love arts and crafts. I am fascinated by airports and posing with special equipment. I love fireworks with Dad, going to Fort. I look forward to going to Starbucks and spending time with my best friend PJ, Tyler, Ryan, Emma, Caleb, and Nicholas. Thank you for your support to save Medicaid.
Very good, Alex. Can you stand with Mommy so you can help me? Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. So it wasn't always clear that Alex's life would be so full. My son was born with a rare genetic condition called partial androgenic sensitivity. And then at about age 4, he was diagnosed with autism. At the time, my husband and I were told that he qualified to be institutionalized and that he would never be independent. He would likely never speak, never handle his personal hygiene, never read or write. But with persistence and the love and acceptance of our family and close friends, with Medicaid coverage under the Katie Beckett program, the only program that will cover Alex's multiple medical needs, Alex got intensive therapy and wraparound services through Child Inc., the Warwick School Department, the Autism Project, and support from RIPEN and also my employer, United Way of Rhode Island. Today, Alex is how old?
How old?
I am. Very good. Alex is 24 years old, and he does indeed speak, as you just heard. 2 years ago, he would not be reading before you. And he lives life to the fullest. He was very much a part of this write-up during the interview that we did with the Protect Our Healthcare Coalition. As a young adult, starting at about age 22, Alex began the transition from the more intensive school-based program to after-school therapeutic services to the adult program at West Bay, Rhode Island. Thank you, West Bay, for being here today. An organization that supports people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Medicaid pays for Alex's placement at West Bay, Rhode Island. Like all parents, for my husband and I, the transition from childhood to adulthood, it meant that we had to let go, especially for me. It was really hard to let go. For Alex, it meant increasing independence, new friendships, new milestones. But for young people with disabilities, the transition into adulthood also means making sure the benefits needed to achieve those milestones are in place. For Alex, the transition meant not only me letting go, but also meant changes for his services in the Medicaid world. The process of transitioning from Katie Beckett to Medicaid was a move from one pocket of Medicaid to another. The paperwork was long, and the clinical review process was a little nerve-wracking for all of us. But BHDDH has tremendous staff that helped us get through it. The school department helped us get through it. West Bay helped us get through it. With the help of a thoughtful and efficient BHDDH caseworker, Ms. Carrie Walker, Ms. Sue, They got through that. We got through that. It was hard, right, Alex? Do you remember the interview? Yes. Now, Alex has accomplished a lot in terms of coming out of his shell. In the last 2 years, with the help of the programs at West Bay, for which Medicaid pays in full, and I'll say that as many times as you allow me to, Alex is now able to sign off on his own paperwork. He's able to recognize everybody's names. He's able to recognize people around him. He's able to memorize phone numbers. He's able to express his wishes, his wants, rather than just doing whatever he's told, and rather than just mimicking whatever we would like him to say. Alex, what did we have on Saturday?
Saturday.
We had the,
the walk.
you got it. Every Saturday, or every Saturday I should say, once a year, not every Saturday, thank God, Alex was the fundraiser for the Autism Project and other organizations that support us. That draws about 80 to 100 people. We just had it this past weekend. Alex takes responsibility for putting out posters all over the house, thanking people. He directs the fundraising walk that is part of the event. We walk right at Gaspee Point Beach. For those of you that are familiar with Gaspee Point Beach, it's in Warwick. It's a wonderful area. He also collects people's donations. The little black pouch that you see over there is where the donations go. Checks do not mix with dollar bills. So Alex came up with this event during the pandemic when we couldn't have the state walk because he wanted to see friends and family. We were regressing a little during that time, so we decided that we needed to get people together, and we started that, right, in 2021. Yes. So I could be here all day because I am a big talker, but the last point that I'll make is that Alex is here today before you because of Medicaid. I can remember that Alex was about a month old, and we had just received our first hospital bill because at the time, health insurance didn't cover pre-existing conditions, which is what Alex was born with, a pre-existing condition. My husband and I looked at each other. Both our cars broke down. The hospital bill was about 4 times what our house was worth back then, and we're thinking, okay, this is going to be fun. But then we received a letter from Medicaid saying that we were approved. And that was probably one of the happiest days of our lives because we knew that we were going to get to keep our house. We knew we were going to get you the treatment that you needed. And we knew that we were just going to move forward. That's how important Medicaid is. The last point that I'll make is that I urge our state leaders, our federal leaders, all of you to speak on behalf of Medicaid. Please don't let Medicaid end. Please make stories like mine, like my colleagues over here, stay alive. Let's not forget what's important, which is to have everyone's with the health insurance that they are entitled to, that they need for their well-being. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here today. Do you want to say thank you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex and Christina, for sharing your story. As you heard from Alex and Christina, Medicaid has been integral in helping Alex live a more independent and fulfilling life. Many people think of Medicaid as just providing routine medical care, but it covers so much more. Day programs, job training, work supports, home care, so many more things that people like Alex can depend on to really live a much more fulfilling life. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'd like to next introduce Lev Poplo to share his story.
I'm not sure if I need the microphone. Can you hear me? Yeah, I've been told I've got a voice that doesn't need a microphone. First of all, thank you to the Protect Our Healthcare Coalition for even asking me here to share my story. I'm going to start my story at the end. I have cancer, and if it wasn't for Medicaid, I would be dead. That's how important it is. I've been self-employed for most of my working life. I paid for private health insurance for 35 years. And I never needed it, not once. Got my checkup every couple of years, got to do pair of glasses every couple of years, but I never needed it, not once. And then the pandemic came, and I lost all my clients. And I was living off my savings because I needed to pay my mortgage. I didn't want to end up homeless. So I had to get rid of my health insurance. And then we're coming out of the pandemic. And it's like, oh, maybe I can rebuild my business again. And then I got sick, and I had no insurance, and I had no doctor, and I didn't know what to do. So I ended up to Thunder Mist. And one of the doctors there was like, I don't know what's wrong with you, but you need to get to the emergency room right this minute. That's how bad it was. And I said, but I don't have insurance. And she's like, well, how much do you make? And I told her, and she said, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but you're poor. I was like, yeah, I know. She's like, sit right here. She brought a social worker in the room. She assessed me right there on the spot. She said, you qualify for Medicaid. I will have you set up in less than 24 hours, and you need to get yourself to the hospital. I had 2 kinds of cancer. I had stage 3 prostate cancer, undetectable at this point. I also had stage 4 lymphoma. That's what was going to kill me. I was days, if not weeks, away from being dead. I had no idea. I'm grateful that I had the prostate cancer, because if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have found out that I had lymphoma, and I would not be standing here right now talking to you. I'm so grateful that Medicaid was available to me. It's covered every treatment I've had, and I've had a lot of them. They had me with radiation 35 times. I've been on chemotherapy, I'm almost done, for over 2 years now. Thanks to Medicaid, I'm standing here right now. Without it, I would not be. Just when I was starting to think that my journey with cancer was coming to an end, 2.5 years in. As I mentioned, for prostate cancer, I'm Mr. Undetectable. But I just had a CAT scan a couple of weeks ago. I had trace amounts of lymphoma in other parts of my body as well. And it appears that one of those places is beginning to spread. I have a PET scan scheduled for next week, another biopsy. Apparently my journey is not over. And once again, if I didn't have Medicaid, I wouldn't be on this journey. I wouldn't be standing here now. We need Medicaid to continue in its present form. Period, end of sentence. If not, frankly, I think I'd like to see it enhanced. There's more things that it should be covered. But I suppose I should be happy if you, Senator Reid, and you, Senator Shelf, White House, can work with your colleagues to save it. There's a lot of people that need it, me included. I've become recently aware that your colleagues are debating changes that they want to make to it, where they say, well, these aren't cuts, but people need to prove that they're qualified for this. And they're going to have work requirements. I'm self-employed. How exactly would that work? Should I write a letter to myself that I'm employed? Am I supposed to send a letter to my clients? Oh, please vouch that I'm actually working for you, because if you don't, I won't get my cancer treatment. How's that even supposed to work? And how does it not make it more onerous for all people, self-employed and regularly employed and unemployed people, to get the coverage that they need? I hear that they're debating that they're going to increase out-of-pocket costs up to 5% of my income. Okay, well, thanks to my journey with cancer, I can't work as much as I need to. I still am not making a lot of money. I still qualify for Medicaid. 5% of my pocket means I'm looking at homelessness again. I'm looking at bankruptcy again. I'm right back where I was thinking I wouldn't be once I knew I had Medicaid. So, I need to wrap this up, I know. I guess I just want to ask all of our elected representatives, I want to ask everybody in this room, and everybody you know, to be in touch with anybody who could possibly have any influence over this and encourage them to fight for this. As far as I'm concerned, we need to protect Medicaid. We need to protect Medicare. We need to protect Social Security. We need to protect SNAP. Anything else of us would be cruel and would only serve the interest of rich people who, quite frankly, don't give a damn about anybody sitting in this room. So, thank you for letting me talk for a minute today.
Thanks so much, Lev, for sharing your story. As you heard from Lev, the expansion of Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act has saved lives. It's brought many people into Medicaid coverage that would previously have been excluded. Health coverage helps people stay healthy and more able to maintain their employment. The federal government is proposing mandating work requirements as one of the many proposed cuts to Medicaid. And make no mistake, work requirements are a cut to Medicaid. As studies have shown in every state that has tried work requirements, they do not drive higher employment. But do you know what does help drive higher employment? Having access to Medicaid. Medicaid helps people treat their chronic conditions. It helps people stay healthy enough to work. Taking Medicaid away from people who can't comply with Byzantine reporting requirements will do nothing to drive better access to employment. But having access to Medicaid will drive employment in the expansion population. I'd like to next bring up Vincent De Jesus to tell his story.
Okay, hello, my name is Vincent De Jesus. I'll try to keep it quick. My story was, I originally was diagnosed with, it was originally called epidermal epilepsy when I was in 2nd grade. I was on medication, and then after a year, I was taken off the medication, but I continued to see a neurologist every 3 months to keep a lookout for on my tumor, my cerebral. Well, they didn't know it was a tumor at the time, but it was for my epidermal epilepsy. And when in high school, I wrestled in Coventry. I graduated, I went to CCRI. After in my first month, my first semester, I started having severe tremors in my arm. And so then I mentioned it to my mother, and she did a research and development for Rhode Island Hospital. So she was like, "Oh, we're just gonna have you have an MRI." Like, that wasn't the doctor, that was her. And so I had an MRI, and sure enough, the big cerebral tumor showed up. I had that removed. Actually, that time I had it removed. It was it was a surgery that just had been FDA approved. It was intraoperative MRI, intraoperative cerebellar MRI. So basically, the MRI was the eyes for the doctor, and shells and ceramics were his tools. So I had that surgery. Then it was a week I was in the OR. Then I started rehab. But anyways, long story short, I'm sorry. And I started back at CSRI and then URI. I'm a URI graduate. Medicaid does matter in many ways, because over the many years, everything about my aspect of life was changed, from my vision to my hearing, obviously glasses, and the hearing, to my movement. I'm not a wrestler, but I mean, I do adapt. I am an adapter. I'm left-handed. That's us left-handed people do. Everything. It's a right-handed world. That's and yeah. So I've been learning how to adapt. Currently, I'm a jiu-jitsu purple belt, but that's a different thing. Of course, I had to adapt it. I can't kick, obviously. So yeah, I changed that. But Medicaid does help a lot significantly with my glasses. They help with the vision. With my hearing, it does help with the hearing. With my medical, medications, it does help with the cut, and especially as a person that still lives independently, I've had to adapt life to that, my house to that. Transportation, that was another thing you learn that, when something that was so easy before, like getting to point A to point B, you have to rely on someone else, and that many times that will fall through. Like whether it be for like the snow, or the weather. Like it might freeze the wheelchair van, so the wheelchair van will get there, but the doors won't open. They can't open. They're frozen. And then, college you missed your class, but you can't say it was the van. It falls on you. So you learn. I learned to adapt. Like public transportation is something I use often for grocery shopping, for medical, and getting medical and going to medical, and Medicaid helps with doctor prescriptions, and and without many services the services that Medicaid does provide the help with, it would be just that much more harder, if not impossible, for a person to be independent, still independent. Fortunately, my family, that helps. We prepared it for years. It's something that, it's not an easy task. And, it's just, Medicaid is a very important aspect for every part of daily living for disabilities in general.
Thank you very much, Vincent, for sharing your story. As you heard from Vincent, Medicaid provides a lifeline for our disabled friends, family, and neighbors to live independent and healthy lives. This includes the acute care that's important when bigger issues arise, but also the routine, preventive, and chronic disease management care that helps keep acute care episodes at bay. We know that people who have routine preventive care are more likely to stay healthy and live longer. And conversely, we know that taking routine and preventive care away from people causes worse outcomes down the road. We experienced that during COVID, where health outcomes worsened because people weren't getting their routine care. We don't want to experience it again if Medicaid enrollees lose their coverage. A recent study showed that 8% of Medicaid members had to forego care because of the costs, but that number jumps more than threefold to 28% of uninsured patients who forego routine care. I want to shift gears for a moment and talk a little bit about the impact Medicaid has on the healthcare delivery system. Medicaid is a significant payer in our healthcare system. 26.5% of the payer mix of hospitals is Medicaid patients. That number increases in other areas, to more than half of the payer mix of federally qualified health centers and nearly 2/3 of the payer mix for nursing homes. You'll hear many of these providers rightfully flag that Medicaid doesn't pay as much as other payers. That's accurate, but if you take that funding away entirely, that will significantly destabilize an already beleaguered healthcare system. Medicaid spending into Rhode Island's healthcare system totaled $3.9 billion in 2023. That's billions of dollars that go to healthcare providers, to hospitals, to health centers, to frontline workers. That's money that pays for prescription drugs, for medical equipment, that's money for schools, that's for money for day programs, for job training. If we cut those funds, we're cutting money going to primary care providers. We're cutting money going to hospitals, and we're cutting money going to healthcare. Many of these providers will still legally be required to see the patients that they see, though. They just won't be getting paid to do so. Given that we've already seen with safety net providers closing due to financial strain, it's not hard to decipher what would happen if we take even more money out of the healthcare system. Less available primary care, less available home care, longer wait times for appointments, and worse health outcomes. Cuts to Medicaid or cuts to us all. Medicaid also supports local school districts, investing $20.4 million in federal funds into local education agencies in state fiscal year 2023 for services and supports that Medicaid-eligible children need to succeed in school. You've heard from some Medicaid members about the importance of Medicaid to their daily lives. I've spoken a little bit about the impact the cuts being proposed would have on those Medicaid members and on the healthcare system we all rely on. But now I'd like to turn things over to the members of our federal delegation who can share some of what they're working on in Washington to protect the Medicaid program. First, I'd like to invite up Senator Reed and then Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. And first to Christina and Alex, and to Lev, and to Vincent. Your testimony was compelling and inspiring. Thank you. And drive me to ask the question whether my colleagues on the other side have a brain and a heart, because Medicaid is a program that assists so many people to contribute to our society. And also, I know I had a privilege of serving in the military, and I saw some of my colleagues ahead of me give their lives. They didn't do it so rich people could drive Mercedes. They did it so people like Alex and Lev, etc., could get access to basic health care. And we are dishonoring generations of Americans when we turn our backs on that. So we're doing our best. I must say, Sheldon and Abe and Seth are in the fight. On the Finance Committee, Sheldon has a particular important leverage on this battle. I know Abe wanted to be here today, but trust me, he's working hard. Now, we were anticipating this week that the Republicans would bring forward to the floor their health care bill, which would strip coverage from millions of Americans, would decimate our health care system, and destroy local and state budgets. Well, today about noon in the Budget Committee, they said, that's not good enough for us. We're voting against it so we can go back and find more cuts in Medicaid, more cuts in programs like SNAP, more cuts in programs that actually help people. Why? We got a big tax break we want to give to the wealthiest Americans. And we got to just take away from Alex and Lev and Vincent, and because the Trumps and the Ludniks and the other billionaires who are running the government now need a couple of more expensive yachts. No. They claim it's waste, fraud, and abuse. Baloney. But it's going to have incredible consequences. 10.6 million people would lose Medicaid under the plan they rejected today. They want more to lose it. 7.6 million people would lose health care coverage altogether. It's a disaster. And they certainly don't care. And as has been stated here, it touches every aspect of our society. Nursing homes can't stay open if Medicaid rather is cut like this. Don't close. So you could have a lot of money, but if no beds, mom's going to be in the living room like it was when I was a kid before Medicaid. Families struggling to meet the paycheck at the end of the month just to get the food on the table, and children are going to suffer. And again, let me emphasize, their goal is not to make Medicaid better, more efficient, more effective. In fact, if you would, you'd probably spend more money and expand coverage, like to dental and to eyeglasses and to things like that. It's about finding money to pay off the wealthy supporters. The word comes to mind obscene, but let you decide. Thank you to the Protect Our Healthcare Coalition. We know that you're out there fighting. We know that you recognize that community healthcare centers will be strained, to say the least. Nursing homes will close. Emergency rooms and hospitals will be overflowing with patients. And frankly, our healthcare system state, I think, will collapse, to be honest. And, you know, the wealthiest Americans with tax breaks, when they're standing in line with their mother who's having a heart attack 3 blocks away from the emergency room, I hope they recognize what happened, because that's what's going to happen. Now, we're going to be in a position with this budget, either way, that the state will make huge choices. Do we save our healthcare system? Do we save our education system? Do we provide funds in the education system for children with disabilities? Again, you know, they're going back. They're going back when I was a kid. And there was always 2 or 3 children in the last row in the corner. Their whole job was to don't make any noise and don't bother us. That was their education. We can't go back. We just cannot go back. We need to keep up the fight. We've got to get our colleagues on the other side very uncomfortable, and that's a mild term. They are. They've given some ground, but again, the far right, the Freedom Caucus, who rose up today and said, no, not good enough. So we have to keep putting the pressure on, and we will. And one of the leading voices in that fight is my colleague and my friend, and a great senator from Rhode Island, Sheldon Whitehead.
The leader of our delegation, let me say how proud I am to fight with him in this fight. But also recognize Kate Michaud, who's here for Gabe Amo's office, and Rebecca Kislak, who's here from the General Assembly, and Senator Chiara Mack, and Senator Linda Ujifusa, because you guys have huge stakes in this not going bad. They started at $880 billion. And then they did us the great favor of reducing the cut to $700 billion. And as Jack said, they can't even sort that out. Our hope is that the whole thing falls apart because they disagree with each other and it crashes. One Republican senator has said something sensible about this. He has said these Medicaid cuts are morally wrong and politically suicidal.
That's for sure.
We want to convince them that it's morally wrong, and we want to make sure, if they try this stunt, that it is politically suicidal. It's 1/3 of our population. It's half our kids. It's 2/3 of the seniors in nursing homes. And a blow like that takes down our whole healthcare system. Even if your grandmother is not on Medicaid in a nursing home, how does a nursing home suddenly face a 66% revenue hit? How does women and infants face a 44% revenue hit because 44% of its births are paid for by Medicaid? So we are in this all the way. I think we are on winning ground, but they are powerfully motivated on the Republican side by the interests of the billionaires and the big corporations who fund their party with what I call dark money, the stuff that flows in through the front groups and the super PACs in tens of billions of dollars at a time. So getting them to focus back on voters, back on the American people who count on Medicaid, is going to be a test, because they are laser focused on their billionaires and laser focused on their big corporations. And we just have to make sure that all of these voices are heard. So Christina and Alex, bravo, thank you. That really makes a difference. Lev, good luck, keep slugging. We'll be there for you. Vincent, congratulations on what you've managed to achieve. Keep it going. We're proud of you. Your stories will echo in the chambers of Congress. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Senator Whitehouse, for sharing that, and to Senator Reed, who I know had to step out. We heard from both Representative Amo and Representative Magaziner, who had wanted to be here today, but have been called to duty in Washington, D.C., and are today fighting for Rhode Islanders in hearings on the reconciliation bill that these proposed cuts are in. So thank you to both of them for their service as well. I want to add that the Medicaid cuts that we've been discussing today aren't the only cuts on the table in the federal reconciliation package that's being debated. Cuts are also being proposed for people who buy their coverage through the ACA individual marketplaces. In Rhode Island, that's HealthSource Rhode Island, but everywhere in the nation. And for people who get financial assistance to make their coverage cheaper on those marketplaces. As I said above, the cuts are expected to terminate coverage for 8.6 million Medicaid members, but that combined with the cuts to the individual marketplace would be a total of 13.7 million people who would newly lose their coverage. It's more than 4% of Americans. Like, I think that people need to kind of let that number sit in. We are talking about cutting health insurance for 4% of Americans overnight. In closing, I have a brief call to action. You've heard the stories of the people who benefit from Medicaid, or those who outright need Medicaid to maintain their health and independence. And you've heard from the senators, and if you're anything like me and spent Tuesday and Wednesday watching the live stream of the Energy and Commerce hearing, you heard about the impact that those stories have on the decision makers. And maybe we'll see more of that moving forward, but the only way that we can do that is by encouraging all of you to share your stories with those decision makers. Or you can encourage the people that you serve, the people you work with, your family, your friends to share those stories. You can contact us at protecthealthri.org. That's protecthealthri.org. Right there, front page right there is a big button that says share your story. You can click on that. Lots of information about how to share your story. I'd encourage all of you to share that among your networks so we can keep sharing with the senators and with the representatives the impact that this has. Thank you all for being here today. I want to again take a moment to thank the Medicaid members who have shared their stories. I want to thank all of you who have come, taken time out of your busy day. I want to thank the federal delegation for taking time to share this with us and for your work to safeguard Medicaid in Washington. I want to thank the state elected officials for doing the same here in Rhode Island, and again to all of you for prioritizing this work. And last and most importantly, can I get one more round of applause for the Medicaid members?